Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Bridges of Belief. You are joined by
Kevin Paulraj.
Jessica Santosa Carlton.
Joshua Coach Party.
and Poya, Heidari, Shahi. Today we are going to be talking about a topic that's very close to my heart and something that I've been meaning to dig into on this podcast for a while, and I think a few of us have a few things to say on. We're going to be talking about mental health and faith. So a few weeks ago, I put out an Instagram poll. Pretty much I framed a bunch of questions that were based on things I've heard people say or Christian podcasters say, and things I actually things I disagree with, but I think it's important to talk about. So I thought it would be good. Maybe we can go through a few of those questions and then we'll just see where it goes. How's that sound, guys?
That's good.
All right. So the first question I put out there, I'll go through the question. I'll share some responses and then we'll chat. Was, do you think reading the Bible and prayer is enough to overcome mental health issues? Now, the majority of the responses were a resounding no. No. One of the answers I got was there was a bit of nuance. Some of them said, I think, like one person said, I think it's something the Holy Spirit can overcome or eventually heal after time. Some people said no, but it's a great start. I had one friend who said that prayer always feels like I'm talking to a rock. There's no response, and I was like, whoa, that's heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but majority answers was no. One person said, depends a bit on how you read it though. No, absolutely not. Depends a bit on how you read it though and the source of your depression. But yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
I have to ask an important question that I feel like is going to get to the crux of things. And I think that important question is, why is that a question? Why do we get those things confused? Like, why is that even a confusion of, hey, like, is the Bible enough or is God enough to cover the mental health stuff? Like, why is that even a topic? Like, why does that come up? Like, what do you guys think?
Why does that even come up?
Like, as an example, where I could go with the question is like, is it because when, for example, you go to church or at a sermon, the pastor is talking about problems and he's talking about God being the solution, but those are also mental health problems, and that's where it's confusing.
Yeah.
Like that's you get what I'm trying to say?
Well,
I think it's really important to understand where this question potentially comes from or why it's there.
the first question is bring up like 10 more questions. But if I'm, I guess, trying to dive in a bit into what you're saying, Kev, like why is this question even coming up? Is because I guess as Christians, we can frame the Bible like in God, like, you know, he can heal anything,
Yeah.
which he can. So if that's the case, why can't prayer and reading the word, why can't that be the answer to every mental illness?
Yeah.
And to get that much of a resounding no from the public, I'm assuming that most of those are Christians as well.
All Christians.
That's also kind of very challenging to hear. If God can heal anything, why do we feel like he wouldn't do? Is it that we feel like he wouldn't do that, or that he can't do that? So maybe that's one of the reasons why that question comes up. It's like, if God can heal anything, why not mental health?
Yep.
illnesses?
Yep.
We live in a society that is very heavily naturalist and humanist. We don't live in the same ancient Near East, pantheistic, no, what's the word I'm looking for, where there were many gods. So in the ancient Near East, pluralistic maybe, but in the ancient Near East, in the context of Old Testament and New Testament, especially Old Testament, I can't remember who it was, but when one of the female Bible characters had to move from one place to another, she brought all these other false idols that were not God, that were not the God of Israel, that didn't represent the God of Israel, to that other place as sort of spiritual insurance. All that to say, it was very normal for everyone to worship many gods, or either many gods or the God of Israel. Whereas in our society today, everyone either is an atheist, maybe a bit of a Hindu, maybe a bit pluralistic. Like, we just live in a very different spiritual landscape, so much that mental health problems might have been solved in Jesus' day or even in Old Testament day through casting out demons or something else. But now in this day, it's because we're so unspiritual, as in Sydney, Australia we are, that we're having to solve it in another way.
medicine.
Oh, that's very interesting. Is this along the lines of why, like, you will often see a lot of like demonic possession stuff happen in like Africa or like Philippines, but you won't see it as much in Sydney because it's like usually the demon to a certain degree, like metaphorical demon, whatever you want to call it, that we might be fighting is like unbelief or skepticism.
Or bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
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 That's just my theory. I don't think
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm fully correct. I'll probably need to talk to an expert about that. I don't know.
That makes a lot. Yeah.
So do you
That's a really interesting way to look at
So
it.
do you reckon like some mental health disorders are actually like a demonic attack, like some form of?
Possibly.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Possibly.
Like, I mean, there's definitely a spiritual element to mental health.
But how do you know? How do you know when
I
it's
don't-
mental health? How do you know when it's a demonic
To
thing?
know like when you see a symptom, I think many times we can act like if you see a symptom of something, we can assume that we know the root, the cause. Sometimes that root may be spiritual. Sometimes that root may just be natural. But to make it seem like it's a one size fits all, like, hey, if you have bipolar disorder, that's always a chemical imbalance, and maybe it's not a spiritual attack. I mean, if you're secular, you're gonna not look at it from a spiritual lens. But if you are Christian,
Yeah.
maybe you will, leave some room for nuance to say, okay, that might be a natural chemical imbalance, but what if it could be a spiritual attack as well? Like, but that being said, to understand what the root is of these things can be very difficult unless you have discernment. That's what makes it so hard.
Yeah.
What is the actual root?
Yeah.
So maybe back to your question, Poya, with like, hey, do we feel like mental health can be solved with prayer and reading the word? Maybe if it was a spiritual root that caused it, maybe in that case it could. But if it's not, I never want to say that God can't do it. Obviously he can, but how he chooses to move is kind of up to him. Like sometimes we do have medicine for a reason. Like if we have ways to solve things, why not use it?
Because I mean, yeah, I agree with that. I think it's I have a view of covering all bases. So I think the best way to treat mental health is cover the spiritual base, prayer, fellowship, then also exercise, eating better, eating well, and then some form of psychological therapy or counseling. I kind of think of it as well as like there's physical ailments which can be demonic as well. Like I know John Mark Comer. Do you guys know John Mark Comer?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a G. He's a pastor in the US. I think probably one of the best. He's my favorite Bible teacher at the moment.
You'd really love him, Jess.
Yeah, shout out to John Mark. If you want to come on the podcast, we'd love to have you on. But his wife, I think, had a physical ailment that was actually a cause of something demonic.
Like a spirit of infirmity.
I'm scared to say it, but it was a curse. That stuff freaks me out. It's like, ooh,
Hear about that.
That's
But yeah.
I've had friends tell me about parents
the
being attacked by
US.
stuff.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
So they had to get that stronghold broken, but it was like they went to doctors and stuff. And I think I think the whole discernment thing is just covering all bases, right? Like
Everything in the spiritual, everything in the natural.
Yeah.
To solve a problem.
That's the smartest way to do things.
Yeah, it's just
Literally is.
it's just comprehensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I have an anxiety disorder. Like I'm pretty open about that. I struggle with anxiety disorder, and so I pray for it. I try to be careful about what I eat. I exercise regularly. I try to practice mindfulness meditation, which really helps. But yeah, it's like I've had it my whole life, and the best thing that I found for it is a mixture of CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy, eating well, meditating, and having a really having like a consistent spiritual sort of having the consistent spiritual practices. I find if I'm doing all of those, I'm not as prone to my anxiety. And I think I guess another facet, which I'm curious for your guys' thoughts on, is like childhood trauma and the role that plays. Could that be a demonic thing? I guess could that? Do you know what I mean? In the sense of like, I don't even know how to phrase that question.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw it out there. Take from that question whatever you will. I don't even know what I mean for that, but I feel like there's something there that maybe you guys can.
Like
there's
something
a
that
thread.
only you said that it just makes me go, I don't like it. This stuff is so hard to even look at and to have some level of certainty on.
how do you know the root?
How do you know the root? How do you know the
If
root?
you have
Right?
Yeah.
So we're coming at this from like a Christian standpoint, right? So anyone who doesn't believe in the spiritual realm and all that kind of stuff, you're not going to understand what we're about to say.
Yeah.
But if you're coming at it from a spiritual standpoint, you're gonna need discernment, spiritual discernment, to know, hey, what's actually causing this? Where God can reveal to you, hey, no, this is like I've heard stories and testimonies of there's a dark energy in the house, things are going wrong. They go to God in prayer. God's like, yeah, there's actually an idol in the house. Go get it, burn it. They go do it, and they said that energy dissipated. But at the same time, is that always going to be the case? No, sometimes maybe you pray, nothing happens, and it's like you struggle for a long time before maybe you finally go to a therapist, you go to a doctor, and they provide you a prescription that can help you out. But having that, to me, having the discernment to know what the root is probably the key thing. But that's what's so difficult.
But you know what? Now it makes what you said, Jess, actually makes a lot of sense if you think about it, because the stories that you're talking about, like, oh, you know how many times you hear a story, like one of the things that we grew up is like Harry Potter was like evil, like, you know, don't ever watch Harry Potter.
Shout out to Harry Potter, sick book series. I
Love Harry Potter.
I rate it. Nothing demonic about Harry Potter. Come at me. No offense to you guys.
So funny. But I heard this story where like the you know, they were struggling, this household, they brought in a pastor to come into the house and check out and he's like, go to the room, and he went to the room and it was Harry Potter books, then he goes, chuck it in the bin, they got rid of it, they burnt it, whatever, and then everything went away. So you hear these stories, right?
Right.
But then it goes back to what you're saying, Jess, because you don't, like, that doesn't happen a lot in Australia. Like, it's a completely different type of, like, thing, you know what I mean?
Energy, context, everything.
So I guess what I'm saying is, like, to some level, you can discern to be like, okay, there maybe like that stuff happens overseas a lot more, and then this stuff is a lot more harder to pick. Have you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's that? This is gonna throw a bit of a spanner in the works. What's that thing? Placebo effect.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Okay, say more.
Well, if you bring the pastor in, he's like, get Harry Potter, throw him out.
Yeah.
You go do all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And now you're thinking it was Harry Potter that was the demon in the household.
Yeah.
Well, really, you just placeboed yourself.
Yeah.
Your mind now makes you feel like, oh, everything's all right.
Yeah.
And now everything's at peace. And because you feel like it's okay, now you stop seeing things that you thought you were seeing before. I'm not saying that's the case. What I'm saying is, who can ever really know? Was it placebo? Was it actually a spiritual thing? Are we going crazy, or legitimately was it something that was a dark presence in the house that needed to be get rid of?
So you're saying that even though the Harry Potter books were gone, the demon's still hiding in the corner? That freaks me out.
Turns out it was the Twilight books they should have thrown out.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
You, Henry Collins.
Yeah. Shout out to Robert Pattinson, greatest actor of our generation. Anyway.
Yeah, that question's a hard one. Like, that question's a hard one. Because...
Can I? Yeah, no, you go.
No, I got nothing else to add. I want to, go.
All I was going to say was the Bible is sufficient, right? The Bible is sufficient for having revelation of God and having a relationship with Jesus, because Jesus is the only way to the Father. However, it's not like the Bible has 10 tips for acing it in a job interview, or like how to discern whether someone's a covert narcissist. Like, the Bible isn't meant to be an exhaustive list of a life hack book. Like, that's not what the Bible is. And this is why I think we do need personal development. And I'm definitely, I don't think I'm alone in this, in terms of in this room, but I do love personal development. I love the whole world of it.
Yeah.
I love that I've built my coaching career on it. And I don't think it's a lie. And maybe, I don't know, I haven't gotten to the bottom of the facts, but I'm a fan. I'm a fan of personal development, and I defend it. But I do think it goes too far sometimes.
What do you mean?
Okay, Tom and I were talking about this actually on our Valentine's Day date, and I said, I think some of my friends have taken personal development way too far. Like, I'm thinking of female friends of mine. I've got this friend, amazing woman of God, but every time she has free time, she wants to sign up for another course. Or she's got $10,000 in the bank. She's like, oh, I might go buy another course with my 10 grand. I'm like, are you serious? I'm just like,
sounds like me.
Go out and eat McDonald's. I don't know, just go out and have fun. Because I think what personal development is meant to do is help you just be a functional human being in the world, right? And like, there's this quote that my amazing therapist, I'm not going to tell everyone who she is because then everyone know who I see. But she says if everyone waited until they were perfect to be in a relationship, then no one would be in a relationship. Because you can do on the job learning. You can be in the relationship and learn how to be a functional human being as long as you don't burden your partner. As long as you're like, how I said last time, you're hustling to sort of get help in your own way and not putting all of that on your partner. That's fine. But I just think people are like, no, I need more personal development. I need to go to that Tony Robbins seminar. I actually really love all that stuff. I do. I would go there as a hobby anyway, but I don't feel like I need it.
Yes, I think
because I
that's the
have
difference.
Jesus and His grace is sufficient for me.
Yeah.
The blood of Jesus covers me, and that's enough.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I reckon, like, I think what you just said, that distinction there is very, very important, which is just like you can go to those things, but you're not coming from a place of like, this needs to be the thing that fixes me.
Yeah.
But then it's also hard because the way the marketing is framed is, you got a problem. That's how they market you. So you got a problem. Are you still doing this? Are you still procrastinating? Like every single human being does. Like, are you still struggling to follow through? Yeah, every single human being is.
I'm such a low-key skeptic now in
Huh?
life.
I want to hear
Of
about
just-
this.
Of you just because of marketing, yeah.
No, because, and Poya, I do apologize. I know we're kind of going a bit off topic.
No.
But like when you're on the behind the scenes of business and you know how some of these business models work and the marketing works, you're like, you know the tricks, the nuances, the changes of phrasing that allows the psychology of a consumer to say, I want that.
Yeah.
But in reality, I'm like, this is not a get rich quick scheme, or this isn't some overnight success thing. Like either way, you're gonna have to do the work. That's what it comes down to. You have to do the work.
Yes.
I think I think a lot of people get addicted to self-development because it's a way for them to avoid doing the work.
Yeah.
Sign up for a course.
Interesting.
And also they feel good at the Tony Robbins seminar.
Yeah.
I don't mean to knock, sorry Tony Robbins if you're
Tony's
listening, but
Uncle
Love
Tony,
Tony.
yeah, but
I've never been to a conference
yeah,
actually.
it's gonna
We should go this year.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. We need to go fix ourselves.
Day with
Come on.
Destiny or something else.
No,
Or
we go to you. I've been to UW 4 times. So
I have
Can I
no
say-
idea
can I
what that
say-
is.
why did the truck that you're talking about? That was me.
Can I ask you a
But
question?
they-
Is Tony Robbins the GOAT?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has to be. He's the
I don't know
GOAT.
who else
Who else? Yeah.
matches his namesake or just matches his fame
Yeah.
in terms of the personal development field.
Yeah, I'm like
Jesus Christ.
Hey, he's a son of God. He's not a personal development guru.
yeah, Christ is the GOAT of goats. But every time I talk to a coach now, I'm always like, hey, is Tony Robbins the GOAT? And I'm always like, yeah,
He is.
he's got it.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
That or at least he had the best marketing campaign.
Ooh, Jets.
Yeah.
He's one of the best marketers. He's
Yeah.
one of the best
He's very charismatic.
in the world. Yeah,
Okay,
for sure.
can I also say why I feel like personal development as a business just constantly pokes holes in their audience because, what you said, do you keep procrastinating? All that kind of stuff. They're constantly making the person feel like they have a problem, which is why they're creating the need for their product or their service or whatever, is because I used to work for, everyone knows who I used to work for, so I'm not going to say who it is, but I used to work for a big personal development guru, and they would say to me behind the scenes, at the end of the day, they just need to do the work. But our course helps them. Our course will help them get ahead. We can put them in front of people and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, they just have to want it and they have to do the work.
That's my thing
That
right now.
is. Yeah, that's so
Actually-
many things to say to that. That's so
Oh,
true.
was it more you want to add?
It's so true.
Because at this point, we're about to run on whole self-development discussion.
No, because this ties into the next question I had.
Okay,
Doing the
that's
work.
next question.
But we can bring that in. But
You got 3 coaches here. Like,
yeah,
Oh no! Intervene!
that's all right.
I feel like we need to do a separate podcast just for personal development, eh? It's become its own beast.
Maybe we could do that. Maybe we could do that like throughout this one as well. But speaking of doing the work, our therapist just paid friends. Why or why not? Now, I got a lot of responses to this. So this was based on something a friend of mine said, which I very much disagree with, but he's like, psychologists are just doing the things that friends should have done. And he was like saying, 50 years ago, men would chat around a fire about what, I'm like, men didn't chat about anything. And then like,
They're just grunting.
they're like, oh, how you doing, man? Yeah, I'm good, bro. He's like,
I'm good.
I'm good. I hate in details, like, I hate myself. My wife doesn't love me. No, I'm good, bro. Freaking, like, anyway. This friend might be listening, so I love you if you're listening.
After you destroy him on camera. No,
Hey, you're
After you're not a friend on camera.
You're gonna talk mad. You're gonna talk mad like stuff, mad game. I'm gonna put you on.
Don't start beef on camera. Give us a
Yeah,
question.
he's my friend. He's my friend. He's cool. I love him. We've had many intense arguments about this, but some of the responses I got, and these are really interesting.
Ooh.
This was a common thing. It's that a lot of people said friends have agendas and values. Therapists are trained not to. So friends can have a biased opinion, whereas therapists have an objective view. No, therapists have specialist skills and knowledge. One person said not necessarily because they're trained as specialists to give more insight into the way we think. Someone said it's nuanced with the monetary transaction comes a freedom of sorts. I don't fully understand what they mean by that.
I get that.
For sure.
I get that.
Okay, I figured you guys would. Another friend, shout out to my boy Jacob Anderson. If you're listening, I love you. He said, nah, they ask really good questions and they're emotionally removed. So I'm seeing a common thread of...
good responses.
Really good responses. Shout out to all the
guys.
people.
Love you. Good job.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you guys think?
I've got so much to say.
Go, Jess, go.
Okay, about what Kevin and I were like, yeah, that's totally a thing. Therapists are paid for it to not be about them, right? So it's meant to be, if you pay someone to talk about your problem, solve your problem, you pay for it to be about you. So say, for example, I'm in a coaching session. If any of my clients are listening, you'll probably see me do this. But every time a client asks, if I go, oh, hi, how was your day, just to build rapport, and then they ask, how was your day? The first thing I'll say, I'll make it sound really natural, but I'll go straight into them, and I'll make it really seamless. I'll say, oh, my day was great. I was just really thinking about your problem, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And that's exactly what I do, because I want to get straight to business. Yeah. But I don't want to make it awkward and clunky either. You know, shout out to my own social skills. I'm just kidding.
Shout out to Jess's social skills. We love you. We hope you're listening.
No, okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing I want to say is I don't think therapists are paid friends. It is a transactional relationship. You are not friends because a friendship should be a two-way street. It should be a two-way give and take street. A therapist is paid to be giving completely to you, to make it about you being the client. And also, they're professionally trained to help you solve your problem, which is why you've paid them in the first place.
And educated.
Exactly. Exactly. They're trained and educated. They've trained for like, I know psychologists trained for like 20 years or something ridiculous.
Yeah, I think you need a master's just to actually be able to actually work as a psychologist.
Exactly. Yeah.
Kev?
Yeah.
Because I'm going, I know. What's up?
Yeah, no, I agree. I 100% agree. Because this is something I've played with for a long time. Should you not be their friends? Should you be their friends? You know, and I've always been like, no, I like to be their friends and stuff like that. But recently, some things have happened that made me go, no. There's definitely a limit. There has to be boundaries.
There are some clients who I still think about, and I would love to be their friend had the context been different.
But you can after, right?
You can after.
Yeah.
But during the coaching relationship, it is completely unprofessional to be friends.
Yeah.
I don't think it can work. I'm sorry. Having been a coach for 10 years, I'm like, no, I don't think it can work at all.
Yeah, once that friendship dynamic comes into it, the familiarity begins to seep into it, and that can, you lose that. I don't want to say hierarchy because it sounds kind of wrong.
No, but I get what you mean. Yeah,
there needs to be a level of they see you as someone who's able to assist them and serve them in that moment. If they are just seeing you as a friend, that can quickly start to shift.
Yeah.
Of like, why am I listening to this guy? I know way too many of your problems to like take your advice seriously or whatever.
But one of the things that we would say is like, we were told is like, you can always talk about your problem, but past problems. You never talk about what's happening now in your life. Because you'd have to at some point give your own examples and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, to make it relatable. That's true. But look, I think what what the audience gave, they gave all the there's nothing else I can add to that. They already gave great answers.
Yeah.
A friend and a psychologist, they're not the same.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's actually a quote. The same friend. I'm just repeating to this friend. I love you. I love you. But I'm just gonna see if I can find it. It's from a movie.
While you're searching for it, let me know once you get it.
Yeah.
Like, can a friend do the role of a psychologist?
No.
I think
Oh,
they
parts
can.
of it, for sure, parts of it.
I think they can. But
Maybe
most
the
of them-
active listening bit, but yeah.
I mean, as coaches, we study a lot of psychology. I imagine, right?
Yes.
We probably know a lot of frameworks that psychologists use as well. We
Yeah.
understand CBT, all those kind of things,
Yeah.
right? If I'm your friend, I can still pull out those coaching skills.
For sure.
That's not going to stop me. However, the average friend versus a trained psychologist is like an NBA player versus some guy off the street. Who's going to be able to play basketball better? You know, so using a friend thinking they're going to have the same skill sets as a psychologist isn't realistic. Most of your friends won't. Maybe very few of them will.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
You found it?
I couldn't find it, but it was something like, it's from the movie The Gentleman. It's something about like how back in the day, all a man needed was to hang out with his friends, drink, and smoke a joint. And I was like, yeah, it was based on, I don't know. I don't remember the quote, so I can't discuss it properly, but I think it just ties in that whole idea of therapists are just doing what friends need to do. Yeah, I agree with everything you guys have said. What you said before about how they're trained.
They're trained, they're educated, they have skill sets for the sake of helping someone. But can I throw one caveat?
Yeah. Caviar?
Is it caviar? Caveat?
Caveat.
Okay.
Caveat.
I just got excited when you said caviar because I was like, oh, we could do with some caviar.
Let me throw some extra details.
Go.
Let's not downplay the power friend can have.
Yes,
Someone-
True.
I partially agree. I've had bad experiences. Because
Yeah,
I've had it. I'll let you cook and then I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Cool. Both you cook. Yeah.
That's
You cook
not
first.
cook.
Yeah.
So,
A friend who's there for you in a time of need, who's able to come to you, maybe you're feeling suicidal, able to come to your house and have your back.
yes.
Someone who's able to sit down and listen to you, who can give you advice. Friends aren't exempt from giving you advice. They can have influence over your life too. I'm just simply doing the comparisons of it's like a psychologist doing the role that a friend should be doing. No, it's different roles.
Yeah.
But can a friend still have great impact and influence on your life? I believe 100%.
yeah, I agree with that. I think you have to be careful who you open up to. Like, if I had $1 for every time a friend told me to just not be anxious, I'd be, able to afford a house in Sydney. Like, it still happens to this day. They're like, you need to just, calm down. I'm like, you need to, shut up. Like, it pisses me off. It's people just can be very inconsiderate and not, I think particularly for men, this is a thing where there isn't as much room. So I'm just personally very careful about who I open up to now. Like I feel like this is a pretty safe space. Kevin, you've been there with me for some of my worst moments. I think I called you a few months ago and when I was going through some stuff and you were really supportive and that was valuable. And I think, I agree with you, Josh. I think they fulfill different roles. I think you have your spiritual support, which will be whoever's your pastoral carer. Then you have your friends, that's your social support, and then you have your therapist or coach. But I think, there is something to be said for being careful who you share stuff with, because I've just had it go wrong so many times.
Oh, absolutely.
And they just treat you I've had friends treat me as if I'm the friend who's always struggling or going through stuff, which then makes me feel worse about myself. While I've had other friends who make me feel very empowered. It actually helps with some of the mental health stuff that I've struggled with in the past. So,
What do you think is the thing that they do differently?
the friends who support,
Yeah, the friends who make you feel empowered versus the opposite.
I think it's just that empowered. It's like, you're not defined by it, you'll be fine, and I believe in you, and you got the strength. And they just hold space.
Yeah.
The problem I have with some other friends is they'll just say stuff like, don't be anxious. It's like, they don't validate the emotion or the feeling.
So tell us more about that.
Well, I think in uni when I struggled with anxiety, when my anxiety disorder was really bad, just quite a few times I had friends telling me, oh, you got to stop being so anxious all the time, don't worry about it. And I'm like, yeah, because I didn't know that, bro. I'm going to try that. It's like, there's a switch? Yeah.
It is kind of funny though because, that is a Bible verse as well. So
Do not be anxious about anything.
Okay, I have. Okay, so one thing that I have to say here is it's very interesting because I'm going to say something that's going to spark a bit, but I'm going to take it somewhere else, which is that, for example, you hear the Andrew Tate thing, which is just I don't believe in depression. Depression is it doesn't exist, whatever. And I was listening to him today in the video saying, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. I'm saying by me refusing to accept that it exists, I don't experience it. That's what he says. So anyway, so here's the thing. So here's the thing. Okay, so I always see that the truth is always in the middle. Always in the middle.
Yep.
So you've got this side who just goes, yeah, it doesn't exist, dumb, yeah, stupid, and I actually used to be like that. Me and my brother always laugh because we always used to be those people, why are you getting anxious, why are you getting depressed? And then once we went through our mental health battle after our big drug phase, then we were like, okay, we got it good, we understood well,
Wow.
you know. So we were of that very much of that whole Andrew Tate doesn't exist type of thing. But then you've also got on this other side, the extreme of this is like overly identifying with it, overly anxious. And what's interesting is this side that goes, yeah, just stop it. There is some power. There is some ability to be like, yeah, you know what, I can stop it. No, I can. That does exist. That does exist. It can be toxic. It can be toxic at times. When you take it to the extreme, we understand that, right? We're not idiots. But if you go too much on this side as well, and just like, oh, you know, I'm just anxious and I have no control and I cannot control it. So that's also a problem as well. So the truth is like there is the middle where it's like, okay, like I do have some power, but I do have to process, like you said as well.
Kev, maybe we've kind of discussed this before, where we're like, what is... It was kind of the same topic, and we're saying how in the past, maybe you've been more of the mindset, like you just said then, where it's like, you try to get rid of all kinds of negative emotion. You never try to feel it at all.
Yeah.
And then you said over time you realized that was actually doing you a disservice because there was actually value in feeling those negative emotions, in being able to actually feel that emotion because, one, you have more empathy when you are able to understand those emotions.
Yeah.
Two, there is some kind of a catharsis, I would say, in feeling negative emotion and then releasing it.
Yeah.
And how, I guess the conclusion we kind of came to was there is a time to mourn, to feel negative, to like feel validated, but then there's also a time to move on.
Yeah.
And tying it back to the point you're making now, it's almost like knowing to not go too far to one side or the other.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't completely disregard your emotions to the point where you say it's not real at all.
Yeah.
But don't stay in it forever.
Yeah.
To the point where, are you really actually making any kind of
Progress?
progress?
And that kind of duality is on like many different areas, whether it's processing or whatever. The particular duality I'm talking about here is you can at times be like, yeah, no, I'm not going to think about that. Like, no, I've thought about that before, and I do have the utility to just be like, I'm going to focus on this. But here's what's interesting: it's very difficult to do it if you haven't processed it. Very difficult to do if you're avoiding stuff. So, like you said,
and to do it for a prolonged period because it will bubble up.
Yeah.
If you don't go back and finish the job, you know what I mean when I say finish the job?
Yeah, process it properly. Yeah.
Then that's when men start dropping dead at 50 years old because we
Yeah.
haven't processed any trauma, we haven't processed any negative emotion, we haven't mourned anything.
Yeah.
Like, you do need to go back and, finish your food. I'm saying weird.
Yeah, no, I get you. Yeah,
I'm seeing like a men's and women's split when it comes to processing emotions, because women, especially F in terms of Myers-Briggs feeler type women, they will, like, I know there are times when emotions have just swept over me like a wave, and I just couldn't help myself. I just start crying in the middle of wherever. I just couldn't. I had no self-control over those things, and it's because of all the years of letting myself process. All the therapists I hired, thank you, all the therapists I hired, and not millions, tens of thousands of dollars I probably spent on therapists. That was good for me. That's not something a friend could have helped me. Back to that topic of conversation. But in terms of I'm not going to think about that. I really validate that as well, because I think if you've felt the emotion, processed it, let yourself go on that wave, it gets lighter the next time it comes.
Yeah.
It's like there needs to be I've physically removed that layer of the onion. Like I've actually gone around the mountain there.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't remove that layer, it's going to come around again and go, remove that layer, feel that emotion.
So in this stage of your life now, because we're talking
The Myers-Briggs changes,
Myers-Briggs.
the development.
you went from FP to FJ to now TJ, which I think you're in We can swap. I'll take that off your hands.
Oh my God.
I'm telling you, TJ's where it's at.
Get married and have kids. Anyway, I'm just kidding. That's what happened to me.
I think that, so the question I was going to ask is like, yeah, in this stage of your life now, do you feel like you do practice kind of what Kev brought up more about like yeah, I could feel that emotion, but you know what? Stop that. I'm just going to keep moving forward because it's functional. It has utility to me just moving forward and not thinking about a pain that I could process. But like right now, I just don't have the time. I got to keep moving forward. Do you do that more now in the stage of your life?
In a certain way. So I say, for example, I'm feeling an emotion right now. Maybe one of you will say something that triggers me, triggers an old emotion, a childhood wound. I'll literally just go, Jessica, you're going to bracket that right now because right now you're recording a podcast. And I'll take a deep breath and I try to be really subtle about it, and then I'll just keep going.
Okay.
That's my way of soldering on.
I love that example. Question for the group was, by a quick show of hands, who here has been triggered
I was going
before?
to ask you, how many times has it happened so far?
Who here has been triggered in our podcast episodes?
Alright,
We just
alright.
legit
For sure.
buried it to say, hey, we're potting right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a time to just
It's compartmentalizing, right?
compartmentalizing.
It's
Yeah.
just there's a yeah.
But do you revisit it later, like on the way
Oh
home?
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's put it this way.
Perfect.
Let's put it this way. We revisit it later.
It's because you're the one triggering me.
Yeah, I've had a front row
triggering you.
seat to see them process it later on. Oh, no process.
Hey, this is part of the catharsis.
Very cathartic, bro. Oh my gosh.
You say that to me. I love you, bro.
Shouts out to everyone who's triggered us before on the pod.
Yeah.
Um,
But you know what? Like, anyway, fighting well. That's a whole different topic.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
fighting well.
Hey, yeah, that is actually like
That's a great topic to have. That's a great topic.
I want
they
to
say. Yeah, because we fight really well.
We
just
fight,
like,
we
hello.
can also not fight well. But
No, we fight well.
But you know what?
I don't think we've ever
Yeah,
had a bad
yeah,
fight because we
yeah,
always
yeah.
come around.
Yeah. That's true.
I mean, that's
true.
yeah.
That's true.
To me, it'll be so funny to start two separate conversations and see how the mic picks it up. But Jess brought up a very interesting point that I actually do understand from a female's point of view. Because we're all guys, we don't have the guy bias versus how girls usually will go about this same process of. Because what was the original question, Poya? It was about.
It's about our therapist just like paid friends.
No, we spun off a lot since then.
Oh,
But about, like, I guess,
how many women?
being validated.
Oh, right.
And rather than someone just telling us what to do, like actually sitting in the pain with us, validating us, that kind of stuff. But from like a female's point of view, I'm curious to get your thoughts, Jess. Like maybe a few different parts. Like one, what percentage of females you feel like have the capacity to kind of just move on versus they need to process. If they do need to process, they need to process right now. Sometimes you hear about in relationships, a guy, when a fight happens, they want to isolate themselves and think about it. The female wants to have the discussion there and then.
Yeah.
Like, how does a female usually approach the same scenario? What do they usually require versus a guy?
Well, first I want to say, men are not a monolith and women are not a monolith. So amongst men and women, everyone has different personalities. So I'm going to Myers-Briggs it again and say, you know, the more feeler type women have to go on a journey of how do I control my emotions when the context isn't appropriate to start crying in the middle of the room. And then the T women who are just thinkers might be in the masculine energy a bit, like soldiering on too much and stuffing down feelings. What's that called? Emotional repression. They do too much repressing that they need to allow themselves to feel, and that's associated with more feminine energy. So I couldn't answer your question per se, but I can say that not processing your emotions is very dangerous. It's like shaking a Coke bottle, shaking, and not opening it. Because eventually it's just going to explode when it does get triggered.
Yeah.
And that trigger meaning the bottle cap opens.
Well, it's interesting that to a certain degree, it's kind of respected for a male to do it, but it's not. It's kind of like not that great for a
Is it
woman to do
respected for a man to do it?
It's not.
Like if
Respected
it-
might not be the right word, but
Because
it's
if a
like
man like punches a wall, I feel.
Socialized? Men are socialized?
Yeah. It's kind of like respected amongst men to be, oh yeah, he's quiet, oh he's the guy from
He's
Peaky
stoic.
Blinders.
Oh, right,
like,
the
slow,
repression is
quiet,
respected, sorry.
repressed, and like, the big
Yeah.
stuff.
Stoicism.
Stoic,
Is stoicism toxic?
That's
I don't
the
know.
whole
Is that-
different.
I don't know.
That's the whole
Because I read the Meditations, and I feel like Stoicism is big on feeling your emotions, but the issue I have with Stoicism is around morality. It's just like, no one wronged you. It's only in your head. And I'm like, if someone killed my whole family, they wronged me, bro. They're going to die.
Objective fact, they wronged me.
You can have a lot of
I haven't studied enough about stoicism to have a judgment on it, so I'm purely just observing what you guys are saying about it right now. But
Read the Meditations. It's an interesting read.
is that
Yeah, I would like to do
Marcus
some more research. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Marcus Aurelius' journals.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I read it, and it's like, some of it's good, but it's not very validating. I guess it is emotional repression, but morality, it doesn't really, I think, have an acknowledgement from my memory of morality.
Did he live in a time of war?
I think there was some wars he was involved in.
Yeah.
He wasn't a fan of Christians, apparently, Marcus Aurelius.
He was a Christian?
No, he wasn't. He didn't like Christians. Apparently he persecuted them.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah, good old Marky. Yeah, everyone froths over him. Like, I used to really like him, but there's some wisdom, I think, to what he said, but yeah, I think a lot of the stuff about, like, no one wronged you doesn't really sit well with
No,
me.
I don't think
Just
that's
eat the meat, spit out the bones.
actually correct. Yeah.
That's how I approach stuff. I like to eat the meat.
Yeah, there's always value in certain things.
I have to ask this. I always felt like I wanted to just discuss this and hear what you guys think about this. Does God help those who help themselves?
Oh, yeah.
I did some research on this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did
Tell
some
me
research.
your perspective on key.
Okay, so I've been reading a great book called Mama Bear Apologetics by Hilary Morgan Ferrer, I believe. She was interviewed by my favorite podcaster, Alex Clark. Anyway, so she says, God helps those who help themselves I hope I get this reference right, but it's popularized by, I think it was Benjamin Franklin, who wrote the Poor Richard's Almanac in 1775. Please fact check that, because I could be wrong. But that whole God helps those who help themselves, it was brought into the church when self-help started going into the church by Norman Vincent Peale. And essentially it's not biblical. That's the bottom line of it. It's not biblical, because Jesus has come to not save, like, he hasn't, a doctor, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, a doctor doesn't heal healthy people, he heals the sick. Jesus has come for sinners, not for the winners or something. I'm not quoting.
And there's also, I think there's also the Holy Spirit element. Because the Holy Spirit is what helps us to overcome things, right? So when God says those who help themselves, I don't really agree with that necessarily, because what's the role of the Spirit? Now, I think there has to be some kind of collaboration.
Yeah.
There has to be an openness to letting the Spirit work in you. There's some action.
Okay, go.
Go, Josh.
Because to me, it's not biblical, but is it wise? What I mean by that is, I know me saying what contradicts itself.
Yeah.
With that phrase, I don't know the full context and history of that phrase, but are they saying God only helps those who help themselves? Or is it more like a figure of speech to say, like, God wants you to take action?
Yeah,
Like,
it's so
are
true.
we taking it too literally when we hear the phrase "God helps those who helps them"? Like,
Literally
obviously,
to a point that it's useless. Look, I feel like it all depends on what's the goal. Because as Jess was talking about, she kind of goes first thinking principles. Okay, what's God's agenda? God's agenda is for your salvation. So in that agenda, does God help those who help themselves? Technically speaking, no, right? But in the church, what are we usually praying for? Okay, fine, we've got our salvation. We're usually praying for a job. We're usually praying for a partner. Okay, so I'm just gonna sit on my couch and cross my fingers and just pray. Whatever I need to do to get a job, but somehow it'll come to me. No.
It doesn't work.
You need to actually work on it. You need to actually take the action. So it's like literally, like you said, in the useless way. Yeah, nah, I don't think so. But in the practical way of everyone talking about it, which is like, yes. I think
Which is what I thought was a common consensus. I thought that's what how we viewed that. I didn't think we viewed it like a literal thing.
I don't. Yeah. I don't think like. Is that like a Pentecostal statement as well? Because I don't hear it. No, because I'm curious. Because
Oh, you're a Pentecostal.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not denomination, but I was very skinny.
by the way, completely separate. It's a separate conversation. Poya. No, actually, I shouldn't say it.
No, say it.
No.
Say it.
Most many times he's come to, let's put it this way. In the churches that I've been in the past, I'm going to say which church, Poya's come and he's just been like, yeah, that's not great teaching. The teaching could be so much better. And then I realized, no, but it's really interesting because in a way I actually do agree with Poya, but the preaching style is completely different. Our preaching style is just like, hey, take whatever we can to kind of like help you bring a point home, make it useful, whatever, maybe more. And Poya's is like, take a verse and then they break it down.
I feel like
He goes, that's the right way. But
I don't think it's that. I think it's more like let's actually base our talks on the Bible, which I feel like. To be honest, I don't feel like your church is
Do
that.
you believe in words of knowledge or words of wisdom or
Like
prophetic words?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do
But you have to test it against scripture.
Spiritual gifts.
Yeah, which is fair. Everything needs to be tested against
Yeah.
scripture.
I'm all for it, bro.
But do you believe that a pastor could craft a sermon? Within that sermon, you're already going.
No, I'm processing it. Keep going. I'm open.
Craft a sermon.
Yeah.
And within that sermon,
Yeah.
God's going to speak through him certain words of wisdom, words of knowledge, maybe prophetic words, which is not just breaking down one verse for the whole 60 minutes, but it might be, jumping over a few different places. But while he's in that process, God is using him to speak to your life.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't have an issue with that.
So what's wrong with that style?
No. I think this is another topic we might have to go into. I'll answer this though. I think the point of a sermon is to teach people like God's word and to equip them to do ministry. And I think what I see in the churches Kevin has been to, they don't do that. It's just like, let's take a bunch of verses out of context.
Mainly Pentecostal churches.
Yeah, and you see it in the fruit. That's why, like one of the churches you're at, everyone was like rooting each other and like doing drugs. Like, let's be real. I'm gonna say how it is.
That happens everywhere, but anyway.
Doesn't happen in my church. Doesn't happen in my church.
Yeah, and you know that how.
Because I know that.
Yeah,
Because
you know that how.
So there are sins at Kevin's church and Pharisees at your church.
Yeah, no, you're... That was really funny. No, but I mean, like, to be fair, we can go into this later, but like...
For sure. Maybe this is a separate podcast.
This is going to be a separate... But like, bro, I'm going to defend myself here. Like... I mean, everyone was pretty open about who they were banging. Like, it wasn't a secret. Like, they were pretty open about how their sexual morality.
Real?
Yeah, people were like bragging about it.
That was exaggeration. That's
not exaggeration. I got stories, but anyway.
Dating or banging?
I don't know. Just like...
We've been going wild today, church. Like,
I just remember there was one time, I won't mention this on the podcast. Yeah, you're gonna put me on the spot. I got stories, man. I got viReceipts. I'll bring them up.
You don't need to expose
Like, the thing is,
I'll back myself. We can edit some of this out.
When you say, I have to agree that the way that I see like your churches, when I went to your church, I do personally think it is probably a better way to study the word. So I actually agree with you.
Yeah, because people clips.
But I don't think that like the way that, for example, that means automatically.
But you haven't seen Paul Dale preach though. Oh, shout out to. No, he does it more like your church.
Oh, okay.
I feel like it's not as like. You came when Jeff. We should bleep out the names, mate. I don't know.
Anyway,
I'm just saying, like my church, each preacher will preach very differently.
Yeah.
So you came in when they're doing it a specific way. It's not always like that.
Yeah.
They still break down a passage, but they do it differently. Like there's a process. Like he's a bit more structured.
Yeah.
Other preachers will be a bit more like kind of how Pentecostals do it, except actually going through the whole passage and they're actually exegesis. But again, that's a whole other topic. We're running out of time.
Yeah.
So I've got one more question.
True.
But I stand by what I said.
that last topic. Actually, I feel bad because I feel like right now it's like almost not 3-on-1, but like Poya needs his backup as well. Like,
No, I can come up with
not
five.
even putting down Poya. Like, I actually agree with Poya's point.
And you know what? Jess wasn't wrong about like Anglican churches have heaps of Pharisees. That's why I don't want to. That's the only why my church is the only Anglican church I probably go to.
With the sinners or the Pharisees. I know which one. I know which one was more Christ.
Well, Pharisees.
Opening up 10 podcasts.
I'm joking.
All right, let's wrap this one up. We're gonna do some good reels out of this, baby. Woo! I've also guaranteed that I've also just like blacklisted myself from every denomination. I've gone after the Anglicans and the Pentecostals. I love you both. You both have issues. Deal with them. Okay, let's move on. All right. Last question. Shout out to the Catholics. I love you guys. I respect the Catholics. All right. Is it wrong for a Christian to take medicine for mental health? Why not? Let's make this a quick one. But
No, I say no.
No? I agree.
It's not wrong. Yeah, got you. Yeah.
So some of the response, pretty much all the response, actually, all of them were like, absolutely not, absolutely not. No, it's not.
I don't think it's wrong.
Yes.
No one said yes. Everyone said no. Everyone said no. One person said, what's the difference between mental health medicine and general medicine? I agree.
Yeah.
One person said, nah, we might have legitimate imbalances, but they're also risky. So I think that's also fair, but is there anything else you guys want to add to that?
Okay, so I am against taking too many antibiotics, just in general.
Yeah.
And in the same way, if I can avoid taking antibiotics, I think I can avoid taking antidepressants.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay.
That's just the point I want to make.
Yeah.
I'm kind of riffing a bit, so don't take what I say too strictly. I think there's like the biblical verse about like the plants of the earth being used for healing. Any medicine, if you look at the root of how it's made, it usually comes from like a natural resource that they mix, cook, do whatever they do, and then it can turn into a synthetic thing. But the root of it generally does stem off from like an actual natural resource. So if God's put plants and
The cannabis plant.
all these things for the healing of the earth, why can't you view medicine as part of that purpose? I'm not saying I'm right in saying this, I'm just throwing out the you know.
I've had my own journey with medicine. I don't know how much detail I should go in, but I recently stopped taking medicine for certain mental health. You know about this.
Yeah. Tell us about this.
Yeah, like, well, ADHD, I've kind of been experimenting with not taking meds, and I found that I'm actually more productive. I've been way more productive at work. I've actually been a gun.
But do you feel like that's because you've like trained yourself?
I think so. I think I definitely needed the meds 5 years ago because I was not functioning well as a person. But I think now, like, yeah, the only difference is I don't think I articulate myself. I don't know. Actually, no, I articulate myself pretty well still. I feel more relaxed. Like, I feel more relaxed in the podcast today. I'm definitely more offensive with what I say. Like, I've definitely, like, have triggered people. So I just need to be aware of that. I'm not as, like, careful. But I think I'm just more chill. I'm more relaxed. And I have been meditating quite a bit for the last few weeks. I've been gymming a lot. I think that helps. I'm very careful of what I eat. And there's just other lifestyle changes I've made. So I think that all adds up. So it's very possible there may be a future for me where I don't have to take meds. I might just take a short release thing every now and then if I just need like a bit of a, if I really can't focus, like a boost. But honestly, I'm actually like, it's been pretty good. Like, it's been a good change to just go off meds. So I was taking full doses, like, because my ADHD was really bad before.
You might actually, bro, be a very good case study. Someone who actually had a good journey with meds.
Yeah, the meds are really helpful for a bit.
You got good, and you even tapered off, which doesn't usually happen. Usually, the kid going up.
Yeah, I pretty much like was forced to taper off it, and now I'm like, I feel great. Like, I don't really feel the need to take them.
That's awesome.
It's a very, very good point. It's good to see. Yeah, that's
Because usually you always see the horror stories of it.
But it depends on the ailment, right? Like depression, completely different. ADHD is just me being like, oh, Shahi.
Isn't there like this real consensus even in the medical industry about like, is it always best to go on meds versus finding different alternatives to dealing with a mental health issue or whatnot? Like, I've read a book called Lost Connections, which is all about depression.
Yeah, you keep telling me to read that book. Oh man, sample. Yeah, sorry.
And kind of just paraphrasing it. A lot of it is talking about how the quick fix is to get on medication, and some people may require that. They also say that some people may have a predisposition to a certain mental health illness. But it doesn't guarantee that they're going to activate that illness unless they're not taking care of their lifestyle. Now, you tell that to someone who's been chronically diagnosed with something, they're going to say, piss the hell off, don't tell me that, it's my lifestyle that's affecting me, I'm always struggling with this. but it's a lot of back and forth between is meds necessary or is it also the lifestyle? Are you gymming? Do you have community? Are you outside? Are you stuck at work all day? Are you doing 9 to 5 versus you have freedom?
Yeah.
It's a lot of factors that, I don't have all the answers for, but yeah.
I have so many thoughts. Oh. For ADHD, I have very little sympathy. Maybe that's wrong, I don't know. But I have very little sympathy for people who don't look after themselves and complain about having ADHD.
Oh.
They're like, oh, it's so hard having ADHD. It's like, but you're vaping, you're drinking excessively, you're eating heaps of sugary foods and processed foods, you're not exercising, you're just being a victim. Like, I've really, like, ADHD really, like, affected my life in a negative way. But the reason I've been able to utilize it now is because I've got my lifestyle in order. And yeah, that's a lot of work. Going to the gym is a lot of work. I've been getting back to gym recently. It's a lot of work. It's like I'm tired. I've been more careful about what I eat. That's a lot of work. I've had to build my discipline.
But choose your hard, hey?
Choose your hard.
Yeah.
Choose your hard.
Yeah.
Do I want what my life was like pre-COVID, before I started taking meds, where I was just like all over the place? No, I'd rather have it now where I have to work a bit more. But you also get all these other benefits, like, and you become just a better version of yourself. So I get frustrated because there's a bit of like, it's like my community, and I feel like you're giving people false information almost. Like people who may have been newly diagnosed with ADHD and make it all doom and gloom, when I think it's a superpower. But that's just ADHD. That's not like depression, bipolar, unless you're Kanye, apparently that's a superpower. Like anxiety, like that's a whole different ball game. Although I struggle with anxiety, and it's definitely helped me not make certain bad choices.
So
maybe there's
also
ways.
very empathetic towards other people.
A little bit. It made me a people pleaser. So I've had to work on that.
That makes you empathetic as well. Because you kind of like,
I don't know.
you understand people's mental health struggles. Rather than going, yeah.
Oh, maybe.
Like I do.
Maybe.
You're right.
I feel like it made me more people pleasing, to be honest.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I feel like the utility for it for me was it just stopped me from doing stupid things. Like, I was in Croatia once and we were jumping off this like cliff into the water. And I'm pretty sure if I did it, I would have hurt myself. Everyone else was fine, but I just know me.
Okay.
And my anxiety stopped me doing it. So I was like, thanks, anxiety. But yeah, I think there's nuances to it. Was there any more thoughts you guys had on that before I jump to the last thing?
Two things. Anxiety has only been a really newly used word. Like, for example, Gen X and the boomers probably didn't use the word anxiety as much. It's come into the public lexicon probably around the millennials.
Yeah.
The second thing I want to say is that we don't deserve this fabulous life that everyone seems to think we deserve. Like, God gives us what we don't deserve. Grace is what we don't deserve. The blood of Jesus is what we don't deserve. I don't know if that's a separate thing, but it's just something I've learned recently, and I'm like, oh, I'm really challenged by that. Because I thought I did deserve it all.
Oh, wow.
But I realize I don't. I don't deserve
It's a
anything.
very powerful revelation to have.
Yeah, and it's made me more grateful as well.
We're not entitled to a good life.
No.
Really, that's God's grace to us, not just what we
Amen.
deserve.
Yeah.
I feel you.
Amen.
That's a good topic, entitlement.
Because actually, like, all fear and anxiety is just usually it's a fantasy for how we want life to be, and when it's not like that, that causes anxiety. Like, oh man, like, I've got to be famous, I've got to be successful, I've got to be liked, I've got to be this, I've got to be that. So we want all these things, and when those things are challenged, and all of a sudden we feel a lot of that fear and anxiety. So it's really interesting what you're saying, because it's like, if I'm just kind of like, to a certain degree, grateful, which is the opposite of having fantasies of how life should be, then
Yeah.
to a certain degree it kind of grounds you.
Yeah.
And like, as a Christian,
Yeah.
I think that's actually really, really powerful. Like, I agree when you just go, you know what, like, I'm not entitled to all of this stuff. It's just like, I just have to be grateful for what God gives me. Like, it's very, very powerful. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then the other flip side is, so should I strive for more? Because you still want it, you know. Anyway, it's a whole topic.
I reckon that's another episode we should do.
I feel like this topic honestly has so much media.
There's so much.
media.
We've touched on like 20 different
So
episode
many
ideas.
threads.
Like self-development
scratched
going
the
too
surface.
far.
Yeah.
There'll always be 10 more threads that open up.
Yeah.
Why Kevin keeps going to crappy church. I'm just kidding. Joking. It's a joke.
Maybe that should be an actual topic.
Yeah, what is a good church? What is good teaching?
What
That
is
would
good
be great.
teaching?
You said how Poya's church did it was better, and I'm like, define better.
Well, I don't like.
You don't need to find it now, but like
Look.
next time on
We'll
the
bring
podcast,
we'll bring someone from my. I reckon maybe we'll bring one of the people from my church on.
and then bring
Person or
pastor on.
pastor?
Yeah, we'll bring our pastors.
Bring the head on show.
Except my pastor's humble. He'll be like, no, Poya, we don't need to have that.
Oh, okay.
That's actually true.
Yeah, they're too humble. They're not arrogant like me. But we're going to wrap up, so I'm just going to close. I'm going to put some closing thoughts, and maybe each of you can share. So the last thing I put on Instagram was any further thoughts. And there was a common thing I saw. Everyone mentioned community. You know, one person said, Nate said, shouts to Nate, so I think people really struggle with connection. Everyone seeks it. It's a vicious cycle. My brother Max said to check in through a text, a Facebook DM goes a long way and costs nothing. Jacob again said community is key. Your friend Janani, she said God uses both the supernatural and natural to feel. I believe faith without works is dead. Amen to that. That's a bar.
Shout out to
No, and then one friend Tim said no one journey is the same. People suffer the same conditions but in other ways. Totally believe that. But I think the key thing I'm seeing is community, and we need community. So that's my and I agree with that.
Do content on that as well. Community, like a content piece on that.
Yeah, we should.
Like,
Yeah,
how to do community well or something.
yeah.
Also, the Bridges of Belief community, I feel like I can, not to sound too woo-woo, but I have a sense that there will be actually a dope community that forms from
I think there is starting.
this podcast.
There's some
Like,
good. You have the
Well
common
done,
people
guys.
personnel.
Well done.
Shout out to all the people who engage with us. Like we're gonna be more active in that, but like it means a lot.
Reach out to all those people and be like, hey, appreciate you, listen to the pod,
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it would be dope to riff on different denominations, but like, hey, what denomination?
I just want to be clear. I love Pentecostal churches. I've been to some really good ones. I just want to clarify. I've been to some really good ones. Like Abide, shout out to Abide. You know, like Abide's good.
You identify as Baptist?
No, I would say I lean more towards Penty now.
No way.
I would go to like,
Anglicostal?
How did we win?
that's a whole other story. We can get into that when we do the episode denominate. I wouldn't identify as Anglican. Like I go to my church, but my church is like pretty much Pentecostal Anglican. It's charismatic Anglican.
Identify as Penty because I identify as non-denominational.
Yeah, I identify as Penty.
I have a very eclectic denominational background. That deserves its own story.
Maybe
that's our next episode.
About
Maybe
it.
Jess's life story next podcast.
Yeah, I think so. But we got to wrap up because we've hit. But is there any quick thoughts on mental health that you guys want to share? Maybe in a sentence.
No, actually, because I feel like we'll probably take these topics. We'll go deeper into these topics. We've only scratched the surface,
Okay.
which is good. It's ended like it's ended up as a good opener.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Jess?
Feel your emotions, don't repress them.
It's not a one-size-fits-all. Sometimes just because you can see the symptom doesn't mean you know what the root is. So don't judge the root of the symptom. Yeah.
We love that. Guys, listeners, bridges of believers, whatever. BOBers.
Bobs.
Bobbies.
No.
Look at that. Thank you for listening. We love you guys. We appreciate it. And we will catch you in a fortnight.
Please.
Much love.